Okay, okay. Take your seats. Settle down, settle down. Welcome to the Road to Concord 101. This class is about all things connected to the path of history leading from Mount Sinai to Lexington Green and the individual liberty and freedom of man. If you're in the wrong place, feel free to get up and go see the registrar's office about dropping this class, preferably before you meet the professor. In the event you do not already know this, your professor is Joe Bakanovic, and he has a bit of a reputation on campus. He is most definitely an acquired taste, but if you can learn to tolerate him, he will make you better at defending your position, whatever it may be. I'm T.A. Charlie. I'm here to help the professor, but more importantly, you. We encourage you to take notes, and if you have questions, feel free to call. If you'd like the number, please email us. You can also post your questions in the comments, and we'll get the professor's attention. Part of my job is to let you know a little bit about your professor. As I said earlier, the professor has that bit of a reputation on campus. Not all of it is good. Let me help explain a little with a story about how I came to be the professor's TA. I was invited to attend one of his classes. My first impression of the professor was that he was an egotistical, narcissistic know-it-all. My intent after only a few minutes of class was never to attend another class with this professor. But after class, Professor Joe came up to me and thanked me for my class participation and told me that my perspective was valuable, and he asked me to keep coming to class. This actually took me back a little. To me, he seemed inconsistent. What was I to do? I decided to continue coming to his classes. As I did, I actually started doing what he does encourage students to do. Check behind him and see if what he is teaching is actually correct. I have done this over and over again, and generally speaking, I found what he teaches to be backed by sound, valid, and rational arguments from reputable sources. When I have challenged him and provided a sound, valid, and rational argument in opposition to his current position, he immediately changed his position and thanked me for correcting him. Why do I tell you all this? Professor Joe is a little rough around the edges, especially in the way he delivers his content. But if you stick with him and listen to what he teaches and then go and check his sources, you will likely find, as I did, he will help you better understand the world around you and help you to think better and hopefully to live better. At least that is our hope. One last note. This class builds on itself. Therefore, it is important to attend class regularly. We will not always have time to go over previously covered material. If you are new, we suggest you watch our older classes. We've created playlists to help you with those things we feel are of special importance. Now, let's get started.
Well, it would appear that Natasha's going to do the show today, so take it away, Natasha.
Boopy?
Tried to tell her she was still in studio, but she wasn't paying attention. Good morning. It is Monday, November 3rd, 2025. Where has the year gone this year? Oh, by the way, my second birthday is coming up soon. It's a week from today. So I've got to do something here for you real quick. Oh, yeah, look, that's the infinitum there screen. But what I needed to do is share this. Da, 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 da. For those of you who cannot see the screen, I have a picture of a little mousey in a maze going after his cheese. And he's decided that rather than run the maze, he was just going to eat himself right through the walls of the maze directly to the cheese. And it is captioned U.S. Marine Corps logic. If you don't understand this, you've never met a Marine. So I just had to share that. Get used to it. You're going to see a couple of these shameless Marine Corps plugs as the week goes on, leading up to our birthday on November 10th. And by the way, it's not the 233rd year of success. It's the 250th. By the way, it's actually tangentially related to what I've been studying the last few days. I don't have a lesson plan for you today. I'm getting ready to start a new um, path on the show here for you. I know everybody keeps asking, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And I've been in my Bible lately, and Yahweh keeps telling his people, remember, 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 remember. So I'm thinking, remember what? And I grabbed a book off the shelf, Defending the Declaration. And I'm like, yeah. And I started rereading it. It's been decades since I first read this book. And I'll introduce it to you later. Don't worry. We'll get to that. You don't need it today. But I'm reading the introduction and I'm like, holy crap. There it is. We've forgotten. Oh, what have we forgotten? Forgot how we got here. Excuse me. So if you want to do anything about where we're at now, especially in the Western world, you're going to have to remember how the Western world was built. And people don't like that because okay, I told you philosophical musings. There's going to be no rhyme or reason today. It's just going to jump around all over the place because that's just the mood I'm in. But I have a question. It's a question for you. And I know this will be one where most of y'all are probably you'll be hard pressed to stay with me. Why is it that so many of us in life refuse to bend our knee? And it's not a rhetorical question. I don't need you to answer me per se, but why is it that we have trouble bending our knee and giving our allegiance to just about anything? We won't give it to people. We won't give it to ideas. We won't give it to governments. We won't give it to the Bible. We won't even give it to ourselves. And that one's really. Remember number 7? How many of y'all have been on in the class long enough to remember the gentleman that I named number 7? Ray Comfort. His street evangelism is just brilliant. He'll go up to somebody and he just starts talking to him. He says, "Are you a good person?" "Yeah, I'm a good person." And he's like, "Cool." And he goes, "Now, as a good person, would you agree that it's wrong to steal?" "Yeah, it's wrong to steal." To cheat? Yeah. To lie? Yeah. Get him to agree all these things. And he says, "Have you ever taken anything that didn't belong to you?" "No, I'm not a thief." "We never accidentally ran off with a pen or a pencil or something that you just wasn't belong to you?" And they're like, "Well, yeah, I might have done that, but that's not stealing." And then they'll get them to confess that they've actually told lies and they've cheated on tests or whatever. And then he goes, "So by your own words, you're not a good person." You know what that represents to me? Refusing to bend your knee to yourself. You can't even bend your knee to yourself when you're your own God. What the heck is wrong with humanity? I don't get it. I don't understand. And I'm not talking to any of you. This is another one of those days where I'm talking to the Yahoo on my screen right here. Me. Because I've been wrestling with this for a while. I won't bend my knee to anything. So I'm reading through this book, and he talks a lot about the Enlightenment. And he goes over how our modern historians, the ones who probably wrote your history books when you were in high school and if you went to college, how they have twisted the truth of history to create lies. One of them is that the founding fathers were deists. And I was going back through it again, and I'm checking his notes, checking his footnotes. Got a couple books on the way to me now because of this. I want to check what he told me. Even though I'm probably never going to read the entirety of those books, I want to know the context of what he was using. So yeah, I've spent money just to find out if he told me the truth of what these other people had to say. That's me. It's worth it. Knowing the truth is worth me spending money out of my pocket for a book I'm probably never going to read and only want so I can prove to myself that this other author quoted it accurately. But in the Enlightenment, what the heck is the Enlightenment? I start doing a little work. Me being me, I go, okay, well, what the heck does that mean? So I looked up enlighten definition, transitive verb to give spiritual or intellectual insight, to give information or to inform, to instruct. What the heck? Insight. INSIGHT. What the heck does that mean? So let's go find out. The ability to discern the true nature of a situation, especially by intuition. That's gut instinct right there. A perception produced by this ability. Perception, observation, mental vision, intellectual discernment, or penetration. None of this sounds like science to me. This is all by intuition, by gut instinct. That doesn't sound like science to me. So I went and I looked in, what the heck does it mean by reason? Reason, the basis or motive for, no, that's not it. A declaration made to explain or justify action, decision, or conviction. Okay, maybe. Let's go down to the verb. To determine or conclude by logical thinking. Well, that had nothing to do with the definition of the Enlightenment. Okay, well, now I'm thoroughly confused because I thought I knew what the Enlightenment was and what it meant. The age of reason, right? Okay. Founding fathers, get them to help me. So I remember a quote by John Adams about his metaphysics. I'm like, what the heck does metaphysics mean? I thought I knew what it meant, but let me go check. So here I am again, Wordnik, metaphysics. It's in philosophy, it's the branch of philosophy that examines the nature of reality, including the relationship between mind and matter, substance and attribute, fact and value. Theoretical or first principles of a particular discipline. A priori speculation upon questions that are unanswerable to scientific observation, analysis, or experiment. That's not exactly reasoning either. Not by the way I understand it. So what the heck? Why am I even going here with all of this? What am I doing? What am I after? You're probably asking yourself, what's this got to do with anything? I'm going somewhere with this. Capital T versus little t truth. It's been swimming around in my head, but I'm still with John Adams, right? Well, let me bring this one up. I want to read this one to you. Well, no, that ain't going to work. Let's do this. This is National Archives, Founders Online. This is the Founding Fathers, their letters. Have I not told you over and over again, you have to go straight to the horsey? I don't like historians telling me what these people said and what they meant by it. I'm going to go straight to the horsey. And I've told you, if you think that we today in the modern world, especially the modern Western world, are smarter than the Founding Fathers, you are so delusional. And I do mean delusional. Holy cow. I'm about to prove it to you. I'm going to read from a letter from John Adams to John Taylor. It was written in April 1814 from Quincy somewhere or another. I don't, because Adams just put where he was at. He says, and he's writing to Mr. Taylor. I'm not going to read the whole letter. I just want excerpts from it. He says, "Sir, I have received your inquiry in a large volume, neatly bound. Though I have not read it in course, yet upon application to it, the Soites Virgiliani Sacras, a page has been found, or scarce a page has been found in which my name is not mentioned in some public sentiment or expression of mine examined." Okay, so what is this? This gentleman Taylor sent him a manuscript for a book, basically, about John Adams. So John Adams is reading a book that Taylor wrote about him. And he hasn't read it all, but he's gone through it and he's leafed through it. He says, my name is all through this thing. And he's objecting here. He says, my thoughts are examined. He says, revived as these subjects are, brought back to light in this manner in recollection of the public after an oblivion of so many years. In other words, you're bringing things back that were written decades ago. He says, I flatter myself it will not be thought improper in me to solicit your attention to a few explanations and justifications of a book that has been misunderstood, misrepresented, and abused more than any other, except the Bible, I have ever read. So he's talking about this book he's reading about himself. And he quotes it. He says, Mr. Adams' political system deduces government from a natural fate. The policy of the United States deduces it from moral liberty. So the person who wrote this book is apparently at odds with Adams a little bit. Okay, wait a minute. The book was not written by Taylor. I'm sorry. Taylor sent it to him and asked him questions about it. My bad. Anyhow, here's where I want us to focus for a minute. So Adams is going to explain himself. And deep philosophy, okay? Hang on. I want you to get to meet John Adams. He's called the Atlas of the Revolution. I want you to meet the man just a little bit in this letter. He says, this sentence, I must acknowledge, passes all my understanding. In other words, he doesn't understand why this sentence was written. What the heck does it mean? He goes, oh, I know not what is meant by fate, nor what distinction there is or may be made or conceived between a natural or an artificial or unnatural fate, nor do I well know what moral liberty signifies. I have read a great deal about the words fate and chance, but though I close my eyes to abstract my meditations, I never could conceive any idea of either. When an action or event happens or occurs without a cause, some say it happens by chance. This is equivalent to saying that chance is no cause at all. It is nothing. Fate, too, is no cause, no agent, no power. It has neither understanding, will, affections, liberty, or choice. It has no existence. It is not even a figment of imagination. It is a mere invention of a word without a meaning. It is a non-entity. It is a nothing. Mr. Adams must certainly never deduce any system from chance or fate, natural, artificial, or unnatural. Okay, he's talking about himself there in the third person. Mr. Adams must never do this. Now, let me explain what he just said. He said, fate and chance do not exist. They're just things that we've made up. They have no cause and therefore cannot cause. He says, I cannot even imagine a fate or a chance in my mind. There's nothing I can picture it. I can't wrap my head around it because they don't exist. They're words that have just been made up, but they're nothing. And he's right. He's actually right here, but he is in deep philosophical waters where he's swimming here. And notice he's swimming very confidently. He's not floundering in the water. He does know what he's saying. You've heard me talk about artificial entities. Well, he just called these things non-entity. Fate and chance don't exist. So if you think, he's basically saying, if this guy thinks that I helped create a system based on fate and chance, he doesn't understand what he's talking about. So he's going to continue in his explanation to Mr. Taylor. This is the last paragraph I'm going to read to you. He goes, liberty, according to my metaphysics, is an intellectual quality. He's talking about himself. An attribute that belongs not to fate nor chance. Neither possesses it. Fate and chance do not possess liberty. Neither is capable of it. Fate and chance are not capable of liberty. There is nothing moral or immoral in the idea of it. The idea of liberty. Liberty is not moral or immoral. He says the definition of it is a self-determining power in an intellectual agent, moral agent. It implies thought and choice and power, the ability to think, the will to choose, and the power to act on it. It can elect between objects indifferent in point of morality, neither morally good nor morally evil, if the substance in which this quality, attribute, adjective, call it which you will, exists as a moral sense, a conscience, a moral faculty, if it can distinguish between moral good and moral evil, and has power to choose the former and refuse the latter, it can, if it will, choose the evil and reject the good, as we see in experience, it very often does. So what's he talking about? What the heck is any of this got to do with what Adams is trying to do here? Is explain to this gentleman Taylor, that according to his metaphysics, his way of understanding the world, his worldview, his rational mind. Yeah, Jimmy Zinker just went, whoa! John Adams, Mr. Zinker. What Adams is trying to tell Mr. Taylor is the guy who wrote about him, this gentleman who wrote this big book on him that Taylor's asking questions about, is attributing to chance, to a nothingness, the work that Adams actually chose. And he says, now liberty is just a characteristic. It doesn't choose. An intellect can, but liberty can't, because it's just a thing. It is not moral or immoral. It's the freedom for the intellect to choose. Now, if the intellect decides to choose evil, which so often does, that's one thing. That can be good and bad, what the intellect chooses to do. But the liberty under which the intellect operates is irrelevant. It is just a thing. It's neutral. And why is this important? Because the gentleman who wrote this book, using John Adams as his whipping boy, says that the United States was built on moral happenstance, moral chance. And what Adams is saying is, since morality is not a thing, not in this sense, it's just a characteristic, it is not an intellect, then it cannot choose for itself. Therefore, there's no such thing as moral chance or moral happenstance. Adams is absolutely destroying the gentleman who wrote this book. I don't even need to read the book to know this, because he quotes the gentleman. You can go back and find that letter if you want. He quotes him in other places in that letter. And he just takes whoever that author was, he takes him out behind the woodshed and whips his butt. The point is, Adams is a bright boy, smarter than most of us today. But when it comes to the part and parcel of the people he was talking to, do you get any hint in that letter that Adams presumes Mr. Taylor will not understand what he's saying? I don't. I get the feeling here that Adams expects Taylor to know exactly what he's saying and to understand it clearly. Well, then that would mean that Taylor has to be on an intellectual level with Adams. And when you read the founders' letters, most of the time they're writing to other people you've never heard about. And they write in this same style, at this same elevated level of intellect. And they expect their authors to understand, male and female. Could you imagine me trying to read and what if I read this letter to the average college graduate right now? I'll just go to Harvard and grab somebody out of law school, last year of law school, and read this letter to them. Do you think that indoctrinated dimwit is going to understand a single thing that Adams is saying? Because I really don't. I don't. Yes, I'm just yapping philosophy here. We got a comment on the board that says you're just yapping philosophy here. What the heck do you think that the nation was founded
Well, they
upon?
say no philosophy here. They're saying you're not talking philosophy.
But I am talking philosophy.
Mm.
That's the problem.
Yeah, we'll
And
see.
whoever this is, I mean, if you want to make my point, keep posting. This is straight up philosophy. I think we have a troll there. Metaphysics, capital T versus little t truth. It's essentially that's what Adams is doing there. He says, by my metaphysics. So he tells you how he's thinking, where he's at. This is telling you, it's an indicator of where we're going to go now. So, okay, by his metaphysics, by the way he does metaphysics, these things are not entities. And we read the definitions of metaphysics. And this is where I tend to differ myself. We use the term capital T truth on this show a lot to mean objective truth, objective reality, the truth that exists outside of our control. It's a truth that is above and beyond all things. Little t truth, that's your truth is not my truth. Okay. Little t truth is the capital T truth is the area of morality, of meaning, of enlightenment, according to the definitions, intuition or spiritual. It's got a non-scientific vibe to it. You can't necessarily prove it, and yet it's true, or at least Say, well, Joe, that's not objective truth. But yes, it is. And this is the problem I have with so many people. I can't get them to understand this. Mr. Zinker says metaphysics is the first branch of philosophy. Amen, brother. Let me see if I can explain this to you in a way that you might already be there. Don't get me wrong. I don't mean to talk down to you if you are. But for those who aren't, because I have found through experience, this is one of the toughest lessons I've ever had to try and teach to somebody else that encounters me. Assume the Bible is true. I'm going to use the Bible. This is a biblical worldview show. I'm not ashamed of it. So assume it's true. And the scriptures represent capital T truth. That truth is objective. If the Bible is true, it's an objective truth, whether you reject it or not. Period. End of story. Now, it's a think piece, folks. This is a philosophical discussion. It's a logic argument. My first precept is the Bible is true when understood in its original context. It's ancient Near East, Torah observant Hebrew context. It's true. Okay. Metaphysics would include those things that physically I can prove and test, like science, but it would also include those things that are spiritual, a priori. If you'll remember a little while ago when I was reading that definition, I read that word twice, a priori. If you're a classically trained philosopher, something like I am, or if you're a self-taught philosopher who has read the Greek philosophers, that term a priori should be ringing in your head right now. If the very least, you should go, where have I heard that? What it means is knowledge that you were born with, knowledge that you acquired before your existence. It's innate to humanity. It's part of our species' inborn understanding. In other words, self-evident. You just know it. You can't explain how or why you know it. You just do. So the Bible tells you that we're all born with an a priori knowledge of essentially the 10 Commandments. Well, no, Joe, sociopaths and psychopaths aren't. Be careful with that. If the Bible's true, your sociopath and psychopath is not mentally challenged. They're demonically possessed. And they weren't born that way. Like I said, this argument started with assume the scriptures in their original context are true. Well, that means that they are objective truth, whether you like it or not. So what we call supernatural isn't. It's just part of the creation beyond our ability to perceive. We are somehow or another crippled. We don't have the senses necessary to perceive the other dimensions of the spiritual realm. Now, if we're talking about, the comic book movies, the Avengers, we're all good with different realms and dimensions. We're happy with that. And the characters, the gods can jump back and forth all they want from Asgard to Earth and blah, blah, blah. We're happy with that. We wrap our mind around that. Some people, that's more real than what I'm talking about here. But you know what? All that is a perversion of the objective truth taught in the Bible. What? Well, yeah. Earth is here. Down is Sheol, another realm. Up is heaven. And there's actually 2 heavens. 3 in the Bible. Yeah, there's three. One we would call the atmosphere. The second we would call space. The third we would call the spiritual heaven. They're always up. Well, not always, Joe. If you're on the globe, sometimes it's down. Not if you're standing on the globe, it's still up. And that's exactly the language of dimensional reality, of relationships, of dimensions. There is no up and down the way you think of it. Not if you're talking about interdimensional. So all of this is in the Bible. It flows from the Bible naturally. You're born with a priori knowledge, according to the Bible, an instinctive understanding of right and wrong. And you go astray from the beginning. It's an objective right and wrong. It's the essence of what we just deduced from I think, therefore I am on this show over the last, 4 or 5 weeks. So that's objective truth. A little t truth would come along and say, well, there is no God. Well, that's a little t truth. That's your truth, but it's not objectively true. There is a God. There is a creator. You could say there isn't. And this got me to thinking about this. All you're doing, it's like atheism. There's no such thing as atheism. According to my metaphysics, atheism doesn't exist. It's a made-up word. I'm parroting Adams's way of thinking, his methodology here. Well, Joe, that just means you don't believe in a God. Oh, yes, you do. Oh, yes, you do. Ray Comfort has proven this to people over and over again. They just don't think about it. If I say that there is no Yahweh and there's no Odin and there's no Allah and there are no gods, there's only human reason. Well, congratulations. You just made a new God, human reason, and you think you control it through your own reasoning. Ergo, man is his own God and you're one of them. Ergo, you've made yourself into your own God. Therefore, atheism does not exist. Well, Joe, you're just arguing. No. That's by definition. We worship God always. You look up worship. Worship is that which you pay homage and reverence to and that which you depend upon for your own existence. Well, if you are depending on your reason and you depend on and honor and reverence your own reasoning abilities, you've turned yourself into a God. You worship yourself, a la Ayn Rand, a la most libertarians. They don't take this to its natural conclusion. Why? Because if they do, they run smack into the meaning of the words they're using and the concept that's being discussed. And remember, form and function define, not necessarily the word. And as soon as you run into the form and function of self-worship, you're your own God. Wow, Joe, you just proved that atheism doesn't exist. And it doesn't. There's no such thing. And what does the Bible say? You will worship. You will either worship the Creator or you will worship a false God. Now, people say idols, but then they don't understand what the idol is. The idol is just the house of the false God. That's how that works in its ancient conceptualization. So no matter how I want to do this, anything you hand me in this world, I can take back to capital T truth. And I will find that whether it's revealed or natural law, it's in the scriptures. I've been working on that too, natural law. Christian rationalism. And there are a lot of Christians who will say, well, that's a heresy. You're not supposed to reason to accept the Bible, and yet the Bible tells you to reason over and over and over and over again. There are several dozen Greek words specifically dealing with reason and rationality used in the New Testament some 1,500 times. What? Yeah. The Bible consistently tells you to use your brain, your ability to reason, your ability to think. Objective truth. It is not because, I know, I saw it, just a second. It is not because, I'm not supporting and defending the Bible because I'm a thoughtless believer. I became a believer because I tested the scriptures and found objective, capital T, truth. And I did something that most people don't ever do, even self-professed believers. I bent my knee to that capital T truth as best I could understand it. We'll continue with my ramblings in 3 minutes. We got a bottom of the hour break. Charlie? Barbara Stratton says Elon Musk is a metaphysicist. Well, according to the definitions we've read, any and all of us who actually try to think and reason and understand our world are metaphysicists. But some of us might turn that into a religion. I don't know if that's what Barbara meant or not. But yeah, all of you here on this show, especially if you've been with me for any length of time, that have learned to at least tolerate me, you're a metaphysicist. Just by the nature of you being here, I know that you're a thinker. Makes you a metaphysicist. So I'm going to continue with where I was at last half hour. I want to ask you a different question. Why is it? What is it in human nature that no matter how many times a bad idea fails, socialism for say, chance, or a good idea is it proves itself, like let's say the free market and sound fiscal policy. Why is it no matter how many times we see this in history, we continuously run from what has been proven true to embrace what we have seen fails over and over again? Say, well, what's that got to do with what you were just talking about, Joe? Well, that to me, I'm looking for connections, right? Connecting dots, concepts, ideas, trying to understand capital T versus little t truth. And I'm doing it in connection to the scriptures, right? Well, the bad idea of socialism has failed because you haven't done it right. Oh, that's the word of a god. Little g. Somebody who thinks they're a god. Now they're going to do what nobody else has ever been able to do. And if you understand pagan god paraphernalia, the pantheon of pagan gods, that's how they become the most high god. They do something the other little gods couldn't do and defeat them in battle or outthink them or whatever. It's a struggle to prove that you're smartest god, most powerful god of all the others. Well, that's what's going on there. You keep going back to bad ideas simply because you think that you're the god that's going to finally make them work. And you don't go back to good ideas because if you do that, you have to bend your knee to the god of that good idea. And if I'm going to be doing this in light of what I was talking about, that god of that good idea, that capital T truth, that natural law, revealed law truth, that's going to be Yahweh. And we're not going to do that, are we? So what'll happen is no matter how many times man is taught that this works and that doesn't. You remember the poem, The Gods of the Copybook Headings by Rudyard Kipling? The dog returns to its vomit and the pig returns to its mire. We always go back to that from which we were rescued. Oh, by the way, both of those verses come out of the Bible. Geez, I wonder. Well, you start looking. We don't need 6 connections, 6 degrees of separation to get ourselves back to the Bible. That's because it's capital T truth. It's everywhere. Well, Joe, that's not the, yes, it is. The word of Yahweh is truth. It doesn't just say revealed truth. It says, I am the truth. Simple truth. So when Yeshua, Jesus, is talking to Pilate and he talks about truth, and Pilate turns around and goes, what is truth? And Jesus was saying, I'm capital T truth. And Pilate goes, what is little t truth? Pilate's talking relativism. Perspective. Messiah was talking about eternal truth, objectivism. Pilate, being just a man who doesn't really care about objective truth, he just cares about power, little t truth. He totally missed the point. That's just it, though. Objective versus subjective. Relative. Subjective and relative in this case. Same thing. That's one of the reasons we have so much trouble with understanding our world. Relative truth or relative comparisons, things like that, this versus that. If you don't have an objective standard by which to measure it, well, then you can't measure it. That's why we do rulers. The inch has been defined or the centimeter has been defined. And that's the objective standard by which we measure things. Well, relative truth, let's take economics, for example. Relative is the domain of economics. If you've ever read a good economist, they'll say, as compared to what? You'll run into that phrase a lot. If you're going to read Thomas Sowell, you'll run into it. If you're going to read Hazlitt, if you're going to read Milton Friedman, if you're going to read Walter Williams, you're going to run into that over and over again. Hayek, as compared to what? That's because what they're trying to tell you is economics is a relative thing. Well, you're going to have that in ethics as well. Not morality, but ethics. So this system of law is better than that system of law. But what is the objective standard by which you're measuring it? If it's a standard that man created, well, then it's still a relative measure. But you're treating it as though it's objective, as though it's a universal truth. It isn't. And no wonder we all get lost. Well, I'm going to navigate true north by that star over there. Well, is that the North Star? No, it's just the pretty one. I like it. It has a little blue hue to it. Yeah, but it's not the brightest one. It's not the North Star. Yeah, but I like it. Okay, well, good luck with you getting where you want to go. Yeah, but that's my objective truth right there. Well, I'm sorry, you might call it objective truth, but you're missing the definition. In other words, you're going to navigate by a different north. So you're not going to get where you're wanting to go. You can't. It's inherent in navigation. I don't know what's going on in the world. If you hear the dogs, I can't control that. So let's go to the free market. We're talking about economics, right? We're talking about relative versus objective. Free market versus capitalism. Well, Joe, those are the same things. No, they're not. No, they are not. Have you read Capitalism? Das Kapital. Where'd that come from? Well, that's Adam Smith, Joe. No, not necessarily. He's talking about the free market. This idea of capitalism has been forced on us by the enemies of the free market. When you look how capitalism works, it just merely says the ability of an individual to acquire the means of production. Well, if the government has the means of production, the government is a capitalist, even if you're in a tyrannical or communist society. That's how that works. But you've been confused to think that capitalism and the free market are the same thing. So capitalism has failed. No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't. The free market works every time it's tried. Capitalism generally ends up in tyranny. What? No, Joe. Yes. Capitalism's primary goal is profit. I want more money, more money, more money. So what do? My goal is to gobble up my competitors and put them out of business until I'm a monopoly. That's power. And once you have that much power, you will start trying to control the government. So those who have a problem with capitalism, I can understand that. But in the free market, well, in the free market, you're not going to have artificial entities. So you're not going to have corporations. So you're never going to have anybody who can become as rich as the Rockefellers. It's not going to be possible because under a free market system, you're only going to be allowed to run a business to the extent that you, or maybe at best your family, can manage it. So what happens if you have 4 kids? Well, I can run 5 huge businesses now. Mine and my 4 kids can go run them. Well, what if 3 of your kids are idiots and they can't run a business? Because I got a little newsflash for you. Running a business is a talent. It's not just an acquired skill. You have to have an aptitude for it. So you send your children out there and the next thing you know, you're bankrupt. Why? Well, because the one child made $1 billion, but the other 3 lost $1 billion apiece and you made $2 billion. So that's, you made 3, you lost 3. Whoopsie. That's zero money. Well, Joe, that's not bankrupt. Yes, it is. If you're a corporation and your net cash flow is 0, you're bankrupt. You might be able to struggle in business for a little while longer, but you are ripe for being taken over or for a competitor to just dump you off the shelf, which is exactly how the founding fathers wanted our system to work, because they were going by objective standards based on observation of all human history. That's how they were trying to establish the system. So we have a free market versus capitalism. And what about socialism versus the command economy? Most people don't realize that's the same thing there. Free market and capitalism are not the same thing, but socialism and the command economy are. Well, no, Joe, socialism just taxes you to give to everybody. Uh-huh. And what happens if you don't pay your tax? Well, they're going to fine you and put you in jail, take your business away. Uh-huh. So you're doing what you're told to do. Well, no, not really, Joe. You got freedom. No. You've got freedom to operate so long as you're doing so a way the government wants you to do it. And if you make enough money, the government's going to tax you more, making you less competitive. Unless, of course, then they're going to go ahead and decide that you're too big to fail. So now they'll give you special compensation until you become a monopoly, in which case that's a command economy too, because you're a monopoly under the control of the government. Form and function defined, folks. Socialism is always rested upon a command economy. It's got nothing to do with, well, yeah, it can have something to do with capitalism, can it? If I let all computers rest with Microsoft, they possess the means of production, so long as they do what the government tells them to do. It's like with Ford. Do you remember back with the bailout, the car industry bailout? Ford was brought in and forced to take the loan so that the government could control them. And what did Ford do? They turned around and paid it off the very next month. They took the loan and then paid it off so that they could get out from underneath the control of the government. So if the government can tell the auto industry what to do, does the auto industry really control the government like we're told? No. Form and function, form and function. How about liberalism? These are all juxtapositions. These are things that have been running through my head that, in conjunction with me reading on the Declaration, I have to say classic liberalism now if I want you to understand I'm talking about individual rights and liberty. But liberalism today has nothing to do with liberalism, classic liberalism. Liberalism today is the sovereign's will. No, Joe, liberalism today is based on the collective and society. No, it's based on the sovereign. The collective is another one of these things that does not exist. It's what Adams was saying. It's just a term that we made up to discuss something. It's an abstraction that does not exist in reality. Show me society. Show me Western society. Okay, well, Joe, that's Europe and the English-speaking nations outside of Europe. No, it isn't. That's not a society. Those are nations. Well, Joe, it's the people. No, that's just something you made up. It's a conglomeration of people, but the French society is not Western society. In the Dutch, German society, that's not French or English, and that's certainly not Western society, and Americans are not Western society. Let's just take America. America is American society. No, it's not. No, it's not. Florida is not American society. California is not American society. You take Northern California and you got Whackville. You take Southern California and you've got conservatives. It's a certain part of it, Orange Beach area. Same thing with Florida. You take Northern Florida and you got conservative rednecks. Take Southern Florida, you got the southern borough of New York City. So Miami is not the society of Florida. See, I could keep doing this. Take Miami. Well, you're going to have those who still remember their flee from Castro. They're not going to be liberal whack jobs like the New York City people are, but you're going to have all these people that moved down from New York when they retired. So even Miami is not the society of Miami. We can take this all the way down to the family. I am not my wife. We're close, but we're not totally aligned. And I'm definitely different from all three of my children. So you can't even say that my family is the society of my family. Ultimately, society boils down to, when you're doing form and function, boils down to the individual. Oh, we just got to classic liberalism, which is capital T truth, which is the Bible. Everybody must answer for what they do. The children will not answer for what the crimes of their fathers. Capital T truth again. Every time I do this, I can get back to the principles taught in the scriptures. Every time. All I'm doing is recognizing patterns by focusing on the concept or the ideal. The principles can change. That's the ice cream. I mean, I have never figured out a better illustration to explain this. It's all ice cream, and we just got different flavors. The reasoning that Adams was using in the letter I read, I've been using the exact same reasoning here. Society doesn't exist. It doesn't. It's just a word that we made up. There's a lot of things that don't exist. We just make them up. They're not real. They're not concrete. You cannot show me a society. Because as soon as you show me one society, I'll say, well, what about all these subcultures within that society? It's the same thing with culture. Culture's a little more real. That can actually be identified. It has characteristics, but a society doesn't. We've done everything we can in our world to destroy the truth, justice, and the American way. We don't do that anymore. We've morphed it. We've turned it on its head. We've destroyed it. That's why I have to say classic liberal versus liberal. You can't even trust the words you use anymore. It's been done intentionally. Some cases, consciously, intentionally by human beings. The word progressive, just used in place of incrementalism, used in place of communism. Not my words, Wilson's. He's the one who said he was going to use the word progressive to sell communism to the American people. So if I bend my knee to Wilson's own assertions, people will tell me, well, I'm wrong. Well, no, that's because they want to be little g gods and frame their own reality according to their own will and their own whims that has nothing to do with, it's not rooted in objective reality. And then they wonder why their world doesn't work. Simple. You're not a god. But I don't want to be just a human being. Okay. Good luck with that. Well, I'm going to go make myself into a transhumanist robot. Good luck with that, too. It's not going to work. You think it is, but you're delusional. I'm just going to upload the essence of my mind into my... No, you're not. No, you're not. Science doesn't even know where your memories live. It's in my brain. No. They think they've demonstrated it stays in your spinal fluid. They think they've demonstrated it stays in part of your heart. They believe they've demonstrated it stays everywhere. There was a brilliant neuroscientist, he's Nobel Prize winner, if I remember correctly. He's demonstrated it doesn't reside anywhere in the physical body. He has never been able to create or destroy a memory using electromanipulation of the brain anywhere. You got people who have lost the better part of their brain who function fine. How's that possible? See, surface understanding is great for most of us. It's all we want. We can get through life with a surface understanding of everything. I ran across a quote by Thomas Sowell. Brilliant man. I love that man. I learn a lot from him. But he basically said a majority of the world's problems are caused by people who have been exposed to a broad breadth of surface understanding. Broad breadth of things at a surface level understanding. They've been made aware of them, but they can't see below the surface. So that they just, all they know is the appearance. That's not a liberal education, folks. Liberal education, once upon a time, that was a different use of the word liberal. That meant judicious, plentive. Pour out your education liberally, without measure. Study just a little bit of everything so that you are a well-rounded person. Today, we want expertise. So when I start doing my AA degree, instead of a liberal arts AA, I'm going to pre-law or pre-med. I'm going to take classes there. I'm going to focus on my ultimate major. What I end up with is a myopic little automaton at the end that only knows the expertise of their field, according to the people who taught them. So I can get somebody who is a doctorate of theology, comes out of a theological school, seminary. He knows the Bible left and back, front and center, and everything else. And I say, tell me about the two houses. And he goes, what? Yeah, the house of Judah and the house of Israel. Oh, those are all Jews. Thank you for playing. I thought you had a doctorate in theology. You think I'm wrong? Go ask your pastor about it. See if they even know what you're talking about. Good luck. I'll wait. I might be wrong. And gosh, if I am, you've got a good pastor. Depending on whether or not they accept it. Because Yahweh sure does. Or how about the Constitution? Second Amendment was never meant for individuals to be carrying guns all over the place. Thanks for playing. It's not what Jefferson said. It's not what Trent Coke said. It's not what the Second Amendment people who coined the language over there in the Bill of Rights, the record from Congress said. Well, the Supreme Court said, I don't give a crap what they said. That wasn't open for their interpretation. Shall not be infringed is clear language. It's not meant for interpretation. Well, that's just your opinion, Joe. Thanks for playing again. Founding fathers, the man who wrote the Constitution said it is to be understood according to the meaning that it was intended at the time it was ratified. Same man said that there is nothing in the Constitution that allows welfare. So why are we arguing over SNAP benefits? Well, the law said the law was unconstitutional. If the law violates the Constitution, it doesn't even need to go to the Supreme Court. It is null and void. Well, Joe, you don't have that. Thanks for playing. The men who wrote the Constitution said that. Doesn't need to go to the judge. It's just null and void. The president can say that's not a law. Well, another president signed it. Doesn't matter. That was a lawless president acting outside of his authority. It's not a law. You can't sign an unconstitutional law into law. Well, Joe, that's for the judges to decide. No, it's not. It's for all three branches. Otherwise, they're not co-equal. We've lost our freaking minds because we don't think about anything anymore. So when somebody comes to me, how are we going to fix this? How am I going to tell you to fix it if you won't bend your knee to yourself, let alone the founding ideology of the world? You know, the idea that actually worked. No, we want to go back to an idea that's been proven not to work over and over and over again. We want a king. Wait a minute. Charlie, I need a little help. Wasn't there a commonwealth, a constitutional commonwealth in history that gave individual rights and liberties to the citizen and the foreigner sojourning amongst them who had a heavenly king?
Yeah.
And demanded a man instead? Yeah. How'd that turn out for them? How'd that turn out?
Well, it was kind of come see, come saw, because when they had a good king, things were great. But that only happened very occasionally. Usually it was a wicked king, and it didn't end very well for them.
Well, surely since it was God-based, they didn't have any problem with taxes, right?
Oh, no, never. No. No, that's just a continuing theme throughout the narrative that tax revolts.
And they even split up over that.
Yeah, wars and civil wars and everything else over taxes.
And the nations were eventually destroyed because we chose not just the man king, but foreign gods.
Yeah, that's what really gets.
That doesn't apply to the United States, Joe. Except that Washington entered into a compact with the same God, and bound this nation to that compact, that covenant, and we're in violation of the terms of that covenant.
Yep.
And you don't think that matters?
Yahweh takes the covenants pretty serious.
Yeah, but
watch our show on Wednesday.
Yeah. That's a good segue. That's what we're going to be doing. Clean up on aisle, idiot. Please, Natasha. I've had enough of that one.
Okay, fire. Fire for effect. Okay.
Boom, headshot.
People are going to think, well, Joe, you get rid of people that disagree with you. No, I get rid of people who are here only to troll. It's our show. If you disagree civilly, you're going to find you're allowed to remain. You're allowed to speak. If you're going to, and we just banned somebody from YouTube, and we erased his comments or hers.
Twitch.
Yeah, Twitch, whatever.
That's fine.
If you're here,
that one was YouTube.
That one was YouTube. If you're here, but if you're here simply to, like with the snake people, whatever, if you're here just to disrupt the board, this is a classroom. I mean, we run it as one. If you're going to disrupt a class, what happens to you? At least if you have a decent teacher, out you go. Now, if you have a good teacher and you disagree with the teacher and you're doing so civilly, rationally, a good teacher is going to let you go. We will. And we'll leave your comments up. But if you're here to troll, especially if you're going to mock Yahweh's people, you better do it rationally and politely, or you're going to be gone. I won't tolerate it. And I don't think Rick or Natasha has any problem with that either. Rick, am I speaking for you?
I don't know who Rick is, but yeah.
I only pretend to be a professional at this.
Oh, fire away. Repeat. They're just coming out of the woodwork today. I don't know. But anyway.
Well, look at the title. You know, they're all over the place now. So
yeah, that's true. So
okay, that one was in fact Twitch. First one was YouTube.
That one was. That's right. I forgot that the one was on YouTube earlier. I forgot we had one on YouTube. That's good.
We must be over the target.
You know what? Real quick. No. Teaching teaching opportunity here, folks. If all you have is to ridicule and make fun of people, if that's all you've got, you are an unreasoning animal, good for nothing but to be led to the slaughter.
Yeah, I sent that scripture to someone earlier this week.
And that's a capital T truth.
But it is.
Because if you cannot reason requires the rules of logic properly applied. That is an objective capital T truth. Logic and reason have rules. You must bend your knee to them. If you refuse to bend your knee to them, and one of the things of logic and reason is civility. If you're not going to do that, you're uncivil and irrational. Hence, you are an animal. And I mean that. You are a human animal. In which case, you live in depravity. You've gone back to your vomit and your mire. And at least 2 of the apostles said that you are good for nothing but to be led to the slaughter. That would be Peter, and if I'm remembering correctly, Jude. Could be James. It's one of the 2 of the J's.
Yeah, and it's
I
interesting.
don't want to be in that crowd.
Yeah, I've been doing kind of an experiment, if you will, with what I classify as an irrational individual. And we were having some discussions, and one of the things was this person made an accusation, and I said, okay, they said something about a relationship between some people, and I said, okay, name 3 of them. And they ignored my question for a while, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm not going to continue this conversation until you answer my question. And I repeated the question. And they're like, well, I don't have any. And I'm like, so you just lied to me, because you said that there was this association, but yet you can provide no evidence of this association being in force. Well, yeah. And very quickly, the conversation devolved into ad hominem and personal insults and things like that. It was an interesting experiment.
Comment on the board from, I believe I'm pronouncing this at Ike Og. How do we seek truth? Is logos the path? Is the word everything? Contracts morality. I'm not exactly sure I understand the questions. How do we seek truth? Well, now that is a personal path that we all must take, which is also a biblical thing. We all have to work out our own salvation. Logos, depending on how people define that word. Nowadays, if you look it up, it just says word. In the ancient Greek lexicon, it was literally the decrees of the cosmic king, the creator. It was the conscious mind and will of the creator, which, if you'll read other parts of scripture, that's exactly how the Messiah is defined. Everything was created through him, and everything is sustained by his conscious will. You can read other passages in scripture to derive natural law that way, that everything was created through him, the laws, all decrees, logos of Yahweh, which would include revealed scripture, revealed law. It would be both. Is the word everything? To me, as a believer in scripture, yes. But the Bible itself tells you that you can't record everything that the Messiah said and did. There would be enough places to do all the books. Now, depending on how you want to read that, was that just during his lifetime, or is it the fact that the Messiah has existed before creation will exist after creation? There's no way for the created world to contain that much, because a finite world cannot contain the infinite. So I don't know how you want to go with that one. That I'll leave that to you. Contracts morality. Now that one I'm confused on. I'm not tracking with you there. So my apologies for being too dim-witted to get that one there. I failed you on that. So yes, Barbara is usually right on target, Mr. Bennett. She's making some good comments there too about socialism. So anyhow, that's going to wrap us up for today. It was just literally a day where if we had phones that we could actually screen effectively and not put up with these people who have nothing better to do with their lives than to disrupt, we'd have more phone callers. I'd love to do that. We've tried that. We end up just having to turn off the phones. These people revel in it. Chaos agents. Oh, by the way, I'm going to introduce this to you later on. Charlie, do you know what the founding fathers' criteria was for when you could reject an existing government and create a new one?
Well, you had to have just cause and have exhausted
But
all legal.
what was the just cause? There's a single criteria. What was the just cause? What was it that allowed you to pursue all of this? Tyranny.
Well, yes, tyranny.
When the
yes.
sovereign devolves into tyranny, they have forfeit their right to rule, even under the Bible. Do you know how the founding fathers defined tyranny?
That I do not know.
Nihilism. Nihilism. When all you're doing is destroying, you've become a tyrant. Let me ask you something. Does this not apply to the Democratic Party in our country?
And the Republicans.
And the Republicans, but
maybe to a lesser degree, but yes,
to a lesser degree. They're the defense. They're allowing the destruction. Yeah. They're not actively advancing the ball. They are part of the system. Don't get me wrong. But that's nihilism. And to the extent that the Republican Party allows it, they are part of the deep state as well. Our government meets the definition of tyranny. And so long as you have a two-party system, you will never be able to replace it because the two parties won't allow you to destroy them.
Yep.
So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be revisiting the Declaration of Independence and the events in history that led up to it. And I'm going to tell you something right now. Those events started with calling a single man out of Ur, a man by the name of Abram. They were foretold long before then, but that's when they started. All right, let's get out of here. We thank you for joining us today. We do love you, even those of you who want to snipe at us. But loving you and tolerating disruptive behavior in class are two different things. It's an agape love. I'm going to hold you to a higher standard. If you come back later and you behave civilly, rationally, you'll be allowed to stay. Those are the terms of use on the show. It's our show. We can set the standards and we enforce them. We try to do so neutrally. It's not personal. If you're just here to disrupt the board, we don't want you here. You come back, even if you don't agree, if you're civil and you use any type of reasoning ability whatsoever, you're allowed to stay. It's not personal. It's just agape. It's me trying to live according to the rule system to which I've bent my knee. And seeing as how I'm the one who initiated this whole mess, Charlie and Natasha help voluntarily of their own will. That's how we're going to run the show. And trust me, I talked to them. We are in agreement here. So tomorrow, I want to pick up a little bit more on where I was going with the natural law, morality, and all of that stuff. I have some more musings that'll be another show much like today, but more specifically within those areas and those confines. Wednesday, we're talking about covenants, biblical covenants. Thursday, I'll probably start introducing you to the study on the Declaration of Independence. Friday, the next two chapters in our book study with Dr. Michael Heiser's Unseen Realm. So that's the tentative outlay for the week. We hope you'll be with us. If not, we understand. This show's not for everybody. I'm not for everybody. I understand that. I've tried to change. I don't think I'm supposed to. I've come to the point now where I think that the way I am is actually a form of protection for those who listen. If you cannot get past the appearance to get at the substance of what lies below and beneath me or who I really am, my character, then it's probably better you not be here for your own sake. If you get past the appearance, I suspect most of you will eventually find there's more to me than what I look like when you first meet me. It comes off differently. And this is not me trying to toot my own horn. This is me doing my best to composite a conglomeration of what all of y'all have told me over the years, because I ask people, so that I can see more clearly through your eyes. All right. Till tomorrow or the next time we meet again, y'all stay safe. Take care. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.